Chapter 201 Enemies from Afar. We can absorb Glorious Group as a sister company into Southlake Corporation, said Caspian. Willow was surprised. What? Are you serious? Southlake Corporation would no longer have any competition within the city if they were to acquire Glorious Group. Smiling, he replied, I'm serious. I'm a general officer, after all. She would have brushed him off as talking crap back then. But now, she was convinced as she believed in his authority as a general officer. All right. You don't have to keep mentioning that you're a general officer. She was genuinely worried that he might look for a better partner in life. Don't worry, nobody's around us anyway. Caspian then brought Willow to the entrance of Southlake Corporation's office before leaving. Miranda greeted Willow excitedly right as she entered her office. Miss Stewart, great news. Glorious Group got shut down. Willow nodded her head and replied, I know. I heard about it on my way here. Miranda continued with gusto. There won't be anyone left to challenge us in Southlake City now that they're gone. The rapid rise of Glorious Group would have brought a lot of trouble. Her worries were gone within a day, as Glorious Group was eliminated. Willow decided not to tell Miranda about what happened at Dragon's Hill last night, as it was confidential information. Get to work, then. There might be a lot of new clients coming to us now that Glorious Group is no more, said Willow. Miranda nodded her head and left the CEO's office. Caspian went straight to Glorious Group's office building right after he dropped off Willow. The office was barricaded to prevent anyone from approaching. Sylvia walked up and greeted him as he got out of the car. You're here, Caspian. What are your orders? Tigran authorities have been pestering us for answers over shutting Glorious Group down. I'll deal with them personally. Call them right now, ordered Caspian. Yes, sir. Sylvia brought out a satellite phone. She called her contact and said, I'm Sylvia, a general officer of Diatoran. I'm making this call to connect your representative with the Diatoranian god of war for a discussion. Tigran's representative was terrified when he heard that he would be talking to the Diatoranian god of war himself. He sheepishly asked, Lord Caspian, what do you think of this situation? He was used to being in a discussion with fellow representatives of countries, not with someone like Caspian. Glorious Group was set up within Southlake City by Tigrans with ill intentions in mind. The first of which was that you set up a business as a false front while plotting to steal Diatoran's treasures. Second of which was that Tigrans attempted to assassinate me. What do you have to say about these matters? Asked Caspian. The Tigran representative had already known about Glorious Group's true purpose since the start. He had also confirmed that the operation was a failure with this discussion. He already had knowledge of the inner workings and the purpose of Glorious Group when it set up base in Southlake City. The Tigran representative was smart and witty enough to hold on to his position. He was knowledgeable in diverting the conversation from the truth. What are you talking about, Lord Caspian? Glorious Group can be considered a Tigran entity. Yes. But everything else you've said is just baseless claims. I've never heard of anything you just said. Are we perhaps having some kind of misunderstanding? I have plenty of evidence at hand. If you're truly being kept in the dark, then I'll just tell you what happened myself. I've already killed Taylor and Bob at Dragon's Hill after I caught them red-handed trying to steal Diatoran treasures, answered Caspian. Sylvia had ordered some men to record plenty of footage and photo evidence of the tunnels within Dragon's Hill yesterday. The purpose of such an action was to keep some evidence to negotiate with Tigra. The Tigran representative continued to deny the incident. Taylor, Bob. I've never heard of them. I've received news that plenty of people have been posing as Tigran officials to commit crimes. I hope you didn't fall for their tricks. The only thing he could do now was to continue to deny the truth. Caspian declared, really, whatever. I just want to warn you and your country's leaders to stop trying to pull any tricks against me. Fight me head on instead if you want me dead. Enemies of Diatoran will not be given any mercy, no matter how far away they are. We don't actively seek to destroy, but we won't simply watch our enemies invade our homes. Tell your leaders what I said, word for word, and make sure they understand my message. The Tigran representative was terrified. Caspian immediately hung up after he finished his speech. It was unnecessary to tell the Tigrans his plans for Glorious Group. Caspian, how did it go? asked Sylvia. What do you expect? Of course, I've settled it. I'm sure that representative of theirs is pissing his pants right about now. Sylvia was excited. Just as I expected, you're truly the best. Enough banter. Glorious Group now belongs to Diatorin. I need you to settle the paperwork and procedures for Southlake Corporation to acquire Glorious Group. Yes, sir. We can hold a conference to announce the news. I'm sure Willow will be busy for the days ahead. One more thing. Have John run a background check on Greg and the rest. Then, have Andrew arrange for some officers from the Inspector General's office to patrol Glorious Corporation's office building. We'll send our men in for a good night's sleep in a 5-star hotel, ordered Caspian. The soldiers guarding Glorious Group's office building had been awake throughout the night and were deserving of a rest. Huh? A 5-star hotel? Asked Macy. Everyone's tired after what happened yesterday. Consider this a reward. Tell everyone to let loose and enjoy everything the hotel has to offer. I'll handle the bill, replied Caspian. Macy was elated to hear the great news. Really? I never knew you could be so generous, Lord Caspian. What do you mean, Macy? It's not like I've been stingy with my troops or anything. Hurry up and go get them set up. The entire 5-star hotel was occupied to full capacity, thanks to the sheer number of John's reinforcements. Most importantly, Caspian wanted his troops to rest without being disturbed. Meanwhile, in the Mahayan Pavilion, Wiley had been waiting for the news about Southlake City. Suddenly, a man rushed toward him and shouted, "I'm here to make a report on Southlake City." Bad news. Caspian's identity seems to be more terrifying than we thought. Chapter 202 Broken Ties. Wiley felt uneasy as he looked at his panicking underling. He had already promised the Reaper that he would avenge Leonardo, unless Caspian was truly too powerful for him to do so. "What did you find?" asked Wiley. "We found out that Glorious Group got shut down. Caspian and his men have unearthed some treasure at Dragon's Hill. We have no confirmation on his ranking and identity just yet, but we've confirmed that he must be part of the military," answered the underling. "I see. It would seem that Leonardo and the Reaper had made a mistake. Bring me the Reaper. I need to discuss our revenge with him. We'll need to come up with a perfect plan if we want to come out of this alive and not follow in Leonardo's footsteps." Wiley was a self-made man in Easton precisely thanks to his cautiousness. "Yes, sir." Meanwhile, Caspian and his men had just finished enjoying their celebratory dinner and left. John's men were also sent back to South Aridlands. Caspian went to pick up Willow from work. "Honey, I've already settled everything with Glorious Group. You can hold a conference meeting tomorrow to announce that Southlake Corporation will be acquiring Glorious Group as a sister company," said Caspian as he drove the car. Willow was surprised. "Huh, that's fast. I haven't made any preparations yet." She didn't expect Caspian to be so efficient. "You'll need to be there for the conference tomorrow. You're going to be the most successful and radiant businesswoman in Southlake City." Willow nodded her head. The next day, the business class in Southlake City was shocked by the sudden news. Details and reasons for the seizure of Glorious Group were published in the headlines of various major media outlets. Tigran's attempt at business within Southlake City had collapsed overnight, and the biggest news of all was that the regional chief of Two Lakes had decided to turn Glorious Group into the sister company of Southlake Corporation. Southlake Corporation would also be holding a conference to announce their acquisition of Glorious Group. The business class within Southlake City was busy with discussions after receiving such huge news. They had never expected that Glorious Group, which they were optimistic about, was actually established by a Tigran. Plenty of companies were facing heavy losses following Glorious Group's sudden closure overnight. The news also indicated that Willow would soon become the greatest player in the business world within Southlake City. It was the biggest worry for all the big shots in the business world. They had chosen to cooperate with Glorious Group for bigger profits. Almost all of the companies cooperating with Southlake Corporation had willingly pulled out from their contracts back then and jumped ship to work with Glorious Group. It was done in an attempt to seek more profits. Now, the very same companies could do nothing but watch with bated breath as Glorious Group would soon become a sister company to Southlake Corporation. They wouldn't have offended Southlake Corporation for their greed if they had known this would happen. The conference began at 9 in the morning. Southlake Corporation had officially returned to their position as the biggest corporation within Southlake City. The Stewarts were also elated to hear about the news. Glorious Group is now part of Willow's Southlake Corporation, and it seems like our investments are saved. Our family won't be going bankrupt as we thought, said Marilyn. I don't think that will be the case, Mom. They announced during the conference that all the contracts signed with Glorious Group will be void. And with how much we've offended Willow, I don't think she's going to help us out, replied Donald. Marilyn confidently declared, Don't worry, she should be used to being teased by us. At the end of the day, we're family. I'm sure she'll help us. I think Willow won't be helping us anymore. She has already made it clear that she's utterly disappointed in all of us, answered Carl. I'll just give her a call right away to confirm whether or not she'll help us, replied Marilyn. Meanwhile, Willow was about to get into Caspian's car and return to Southlake Corporation after the conference was wrapped up. Her phone started ringing, and she frowned when she realized that the caller was Marilyn. Hello, Grandma. What's up? Marilyn put on a sweet tone. Willow, are you free today? Why don't you join us for dinner? Everyone misses you. Willow angrily replied, No thanks. I don't really want anything to do with the family. She had been utterly disappointed with the Stewart family in these past few months. The Stewarts would constantly flatter her when she was doing well, and when she needed their help the most, they immediately threw her by the wayside. Marilyn was confident that she would be able to convince Willow to come home for a meal. She didn't expect to be met with such an aggressive tone. You're being disrespectful to your seniors, Willow. She had to suppress her anger, as the family would need to rely on Willow's help to survive. Willow immediately exploded with anger. I'm surprised you could still call yourself my grandmother after what you've done. You flatter me with praises when I'm useful for the family, and you simply discard me like garbage once I'm useless. Do you really think I'd still fall for your tricks and reconnect with the family? I've already told you that I've given up on all of you. I'm no longer the young naive girl I used to be, that would listen to every single one of your words. I don't care what happens to all of you. Caspian was surprised to see Willow being furious. He lamented, thinking that Willow had truly changed for the better after all that had happened. He agreed with Willow's decision as he believed anyone else would have done the same after what the Stewarts had done to her. Marilyn was left speechless as Willow had simply stated the truth. She awkwardly tried to shift the conversation away. I just want to see you for dinner. What are you talking about? Every single dinner you've ever invited me for was done with ulterior motives. You didn't even care about me when Southlake Corporation was about to collapse. You're inviting me for dinner so that you can convince me to pick up the entire Stewart family's slack. No, not a chance. I'd rather throw my contracts to the wind than work together. Willow exposed Marilyn's intentions once more. Marilyn finally revealed her true colors as her anger boiled over. Where are your manners? Are you trying to break ties with your family now that you've grown up? She had never witnessed such a level of disrespect as the matriarch of the Stewarts. That's right. It's just as you said. I'm breaking ties with the Stewarts, answered Willow. Only then did Caspian realize just how much of a grudge Willow had been holding in her heart against her own family. Willow continued, From today onward, Caspian will not be known as the son-in-law of the Stewarts, and our children will bear his family name instead of mine. My family and the Stewarts will no longer have any relations. She immediately hung up after. Marilyn was taken aback by her words. She was furious that Willow had hung up on her. Frowning, she coughed a mouthful of blood. Chapter 203 Powerful CEO. Everyone in the house was horrified to see Marilyn coughing up blood. Grandma, are you okay? Mom. They soon rushed over to take a look. Are you all right, Mom? Asked Carl as he frantically ran over. Marilyn angrily replied, It's all your daughter's fault. She just told me that she'll be breaking all ties with our family. Everyone present was shocked to hear the news. But, Mom, you're the one who asked her if she wanted to break ties with the family. She wouldn't have said so if you never asked her to, answered Carl. Did I? What an ungrateful girl. She's breaking ties with us now that she's successful, complained Marilyn. She had, in fact, presented the question to Willow about breaking ties with the stewards. She didn't expect Willow to actually go through with it. Carl continued to speak up for Willow. Think about what all of you have done to her. Of course, she'd break ties with us. What she's doing to us now is more severe than anything we've done to her. We need to think about how to re-establish our cooperation with Southlake Corporation to ensure our survival, answered Marilyn. The only thing she ever cared about was preserving the Stewart family's business. Calm down, Mom. I'll have a talk with Willow. I'm sure she'll listen to me, said Kate. Marilyn replied, That's great. I hope you can help secure some contracts for our family. If you succeed, I'll give you 10% of Stewart Group's shares. Kate confidently answered, Leave it to me, Mom. I'll make sure that we can still work together with Willow and Southlake Corporation. She was excited after hearing about the reward. Just 10% of Stewart Group shares seemed like an astronomical number for her. Willow hung up the call and turned to Caspian. Honey, do you think I was being too harsh? No, I think you made the right choice, answered Caspian. Willow continued. I'm still a steward at the end of the day. Will I be reprimanded by the public for breaking ties with them? Relax. You shouldn't worry about what others think about this. If you're still soft-hearted enough for them to convince you to help them once more, they're just going to do the same thing again and again, explained Caspian. He could tell that they would continue to bully her if the stewards managed to remain in contact with her. Do you think my parents will be disappointed in me? Asked Willow. Mr. Carl may be a wimp, but he has proper morals. I'm sure he can tell what's good for you. But as for your mother, she wouldn't still be alive if you hadn't stopped me. Caspian was furious as he thought about what Kate had done to Lilith. Willow was slightly frightened when she noticed his expression sinking. She understood that killing another person was just a simple task for someone like him. She tried to shift the topic immediately. I'm referring to the things I told my grandma. It's fine, right? Caspian replied with a sly-looking grin. It's fine. Our kids will naturally take after my family name. By the way, shouldn't we start spending some time with just the two of us and try for a child? How about right here, right now? I've never tried doing it in a car, though. Hearing this, Willow's face turned bright red. Just what's on your mind? Geez, I'm not talking to you anymore today. Himph. She didn't object to being intimate at home, but she felt that it was too extreme to be doing it in the car. Heh, we've been holding it back thanks to your best friend living in our house. Willow agreed with his words, as they had never been able to enjoy each other's company in private due to Zoe being around. Listen, Willow. I'm now a general officer, and Southlake Corporation is now the biggest company in the city. It's about time we celebrate the occasion, and we've been looking to have a child. Why don't we give it a try in the car? Asked Caspian. No way. What are we going to do if somebody sees us? Besides, I'm still very busy with work. Caspian nodded and stopped asking her about it. He realized it was only natural that Willow would be busy with handling Southlake City Corporation for the next few days. Now that Zoe had left, they had all the time in the world. Caspian then sent Willow back to Southlake Corporation. Miranda had already redrafted a contract according to Willow's instructions. They would be deciding the flow of the market now that they were unchallenged within Southlake City. Every company within the city began to queue up for cooperation with Southlake Corporation. Managers from various families within Southlake City soon came to visit the office, including representatives of the Hudson and Archer families. They were all dissatisfied with the contract given by Southlake Corporation, as there was practically no profit for them. Are you kidding me? What's the point of signing the contract if we're not getting anything out of it? Do you think we're idiots or something? We request for a re-evaluation. We're not signing unless we get a better deal. Let us talk to your CEO. Gods, Southlake Corporation is so greedy. Plenty of other managers of companies were also voicing their dismay with the contract details. They demanded a clear explanation. Willow had already anticipated such a scenario. She listened to the commotion in the meeting room for a while before walking in. She had an air of confidence around her, hugely due to Southlake Corporation being the most powerful company in the city right now. I believe you folks are seeking to cooperate with me for business, not the other way round. You have the freedom to make your choices, be it to sign or to stop bothering me and walk out of here. There will be plenty of other companies seeking to work with us, without your snobby attitudes. Her words were powerful, and they were with reason. Her speech instantly shut down the commotion in the meeting room. Southlake Corporation had a monopoly on the businesses in the city. Coupled with Willow's decisions, plenty of companies would still willingly apply and sign the contract to work with them. As a result, the companies that had invested in Glorious Group could no longer return their investment and had to file for bankruptcy. The new contract available with Southlake Corporation only allowed them to make even with their investments. Willow was utilizing this chance to teach them a lesson for betraying her back then by pulling out and defecting to Glorious Group. The Archer family's representative spoke out. "How dare you? Our contract with Glorious Group wasn't anything like this. You only need to renew the contract now that you've acquired Glorious Group. Tampering with the contract like this will cause a rift within the business world. That's right. You're being unethical if you want us to sign this new one, instead of renewing the one we signed with Glorious Group." The Hudson family's representative chimed in as well. Willow maintained her composure and clapped her hands. "Well said, truly. The only problem is that I personally don't care about your suggestions. I've already decided on the rules and have written out the details I want in the contract. You may leave if you find the contract unfavorable. Nobody is forcing you to sign it." Her confident tone suppressed the rowdy crowd. Smaller companies begrudgingly signed the contract to, at the very least, save their investment. It would still serve to have some returns. Caspian quietly witnessed the scene unfold before him. He nodded his head in satisfaction as he listened to Willow's speech. Suddenly, a woman angrily walked into the room right as the crowd was finally being convinced. Caspian took a good look at the woman and realized that she was none other than Kate. Chapter 204, Mother and Daughter. Willow was also surprised to see Kate. "Mom, why are you here?" Kate solemnly replied, "Hello, Willow. I'm here on behalf of the stewards to discuss our collaboration." The crowd watched closely as they wanted to see if Willow would give preferential treatment to the stewards. "The stewards will have to sign a contract like every other company before we can talk," answered Willow. Kate replied, "May I have a copy of the contract? I'd like to take a look." Willow had her secretary hand over a copy of the contract to Kate. Kate took her time to read through the contract, and her face slowly distorted from shock. The new contract would lower their profit by at least 60% from their original contract with Glorious Group. Kate voiced her disapproval. "Willow, what's the deal with this contract? Isn't the profit way too low?" Willow knew that Kate was sent by Marilyn in an attempt to convince her to help. "I have responsibilities to uphold as the CEO of Southlake Corporation, Mom. You may sign the contract if you wish to work with us. Or you may just leave and go home. It's up to you." She would not allow that family to take advantage of her ever again. "The stewards have already invested most of our money into Glorious Group. Can't you give us a better contract, considering that we're family?" asked Kate. "Absolutely not. Every company working together with us will be treated equally with Southlake Corporation's profits in mind. We can't afford to show any preferential treatment." For family members, Willow would not back down from her decision, no matter how much Kate pleaded with her. Kate was still upset. "You're just trying to monopolize the market and suppress every other company with this contract. You're correct in the fact that business is only about profit, but you're handling Southlake Corporation with too much greed. With such low profits, we're just teetering on the edge of losses if we sign the contract, especially if we have to pay reparations if anything goes wrong." The crowd agreed with her words and felt that Willow's contract was unethical. Willow angrily replied, "I'm not going to say it again. You may leave if you don't wish to sign the contract. Stop bothering everyone else." She had the situation under control until Kate's appearance roused the crowd once more. Kate started threatening her. "You want to do this the hard way, huh? Then don't blame me for exposing your secrets." Willow's expression sank, as she never expected Kate to threaten her just for the sake of a profitable contract. Caspian became enraged when he saw Kate threatening Willow. He had hated Kate for a long time for partly causing Lilith's demise. He had been holding a grudge against her ever since. The crowd fell silent, as they anticipated Willow's secrets being revealed. Willow angrily replied, "Try me. Then, you make it sound like I have secrets that I can't risk being exposed to the public. Kate smugly explained, "You're giving me no other choice, my daughter. I'm giving you one last chance to change the contents of the contract before I reveal your secrets. It'll be enough to completely ruin your image in the public eye." She was ready to do anything simply to gain the 10% shares of Stewart Group promised by Marilyn. The crowd began speculating about Willow's secrets. They wondered if she had cuckolded her husband or something. It was a plausible theory, given the fact that Willow was the most beautiful woman in the city. "I'm not your daughter. I've already made it clear that I don't want anything to do with you. Why don't you speak up properly, instead of trying to slander me with baseless rumors?" argued Willow. She didn't want Kate to ruin her image with a false claim. She had always stayed by Caspian's side, and had never gone to look for other men since they got married. Willow felt that she needed to resolve this matter immediately, or the murmuring crowd would soon spread rumors across the city to ruin her image. Kate was furious that Willow had truly decided to break ties with her. "I see. So you don't even see me as your own mother anymore. Very well, then. Enough games. Just say what you want to say." Willow wasn't scared of Kate, as she was truly innocent. She wouldn't be threatened by false claims without proper evidence from Kate. The crowd was seemingly on Kate's side at this moment. Kate angrily shouted, "How ungrateful. You'd sever all ties with your own family now that you're the CEO of Southlake Corporation. You're even worse than an animal." "Is this the secret you're claiming will ruin my life once exposed?" asked Willow. Kate continued, "That's right. You ungrateful and cold-blooded woman. We raised you from a child to adulthood, and into your current success. Yet, you're discarding us now that you're able to survive on your own. How shameless." Willow personally couldn't care less about her image in this regard. The crowd was convinced by Kate that Willow was an ungrateful daughter. Willow didn't back down at all. "Who's the cold-blooded one here, I wonder? The entire Stewart family shunned and insulted me throughout my entire life. You even tried to disown me when I married Caspian. When Southlake Corporation was about to collapse, the Stewarts immediately looked the other way and invested all their money in Glorious Group instead. Now the Glorious Group is no more. You're crawling back to me." She finally let loose her feelings and spilled everything she wanted to say. She had never expected to quarrel with her own mother about this. She began to wonder if Kate was actually her mother or not, given her unreasonable attitude. Willow felt regretful for protecting Kate after she had partially caused Lilith's demise, which had also caused a rift between her and Caspian. She wanted to show the world just how horrifying Kate was as a mother. Willow composed herself and decided not to go through with it, as she still pitied her own family. The crowd started shifting to stand with Willow instead of the Stewarts after listening to the exchange. Kate was left speechless after being scolded by her own daughter. With the crowd now on Willow's side, she felt that her advantage had disappeared. With her face bright red from embarrassment and anger, she raised her hand. A loud clap rang out in the room as Kate slapped Willow square in the face. Willow was frozen in place as her fair cheek became marred with a red handprint. Chapter 205 Capture Her. The slap had caught both Willow and the crowd by surprise. Everyone present was shocked that Kate would ruthlessly slap her own daughter, especially when her daughter was the CEO of Southlake Corporation herself. Miranda and the rest of the employees of Southlake Corporation were dumbfounded. They weren't able to react in time to stop it. Not even Caspian had expected Kate to suddenly slap Willow. He angrily rushed over after seeing his wife get hit. Kate was agitated. "What an ungrateful daughter. Do you think you could have become the CEO of Southlake Corporation without me? How dare you shout all that nonsense at your own mother?" Willow held onto her cheek and left the scene in tears. Miranda quickly followed after her. Kate turned to the crowd and explained, "My apologies, everyone. I never expected my daughter to be such a cold-blooded woman. I'll need to re-educate her properly." She then turned around, only to find Caspian standing in front of her. She was terrified as his eyes were glowing red with anger. "What are you trying to do, Caspian?" asked Kate as she took 2 steps back. A loud slap rang throughout the room once more. But this time, it came from Caspian slapping Kate. He had put up with Kate for a very long time. He looked at her face and walked into her once more. Kate screamed out in terror as her cheeks were burning with pain. Everyone else was frozen in place as they had never expected the good. Nothing Caspian to dare slap Kate. "Caspian, you useless scum! You dare hit me!" roared Kate as she held her cheeks. Caspian held up his hand once more. "What's wrong? I'll slap you again if you want." She stood up and fled the scene as she realized that he was being serious. Caspian then gave a call to Sylvia after Kate had left. "Sylvia, I need you to capture Kate," ordered Caspian. "Huh? Caspian, what did you say? I thought Kate's your mother-in-law," asked Sylvia. "The details for later. Just capture her and bring her to my mother's tomb. Just know that my mother wouldn't have died if not for Kate." He finished his orders and hung up. Sylvia was furious after receiving the news. Although she didn't know the details, she believed in Caspian and was also angry at Kate for causing Lilith's death. She brought along some men and immediately went out to perform her given task. After hanging up, Caspian walked into Willow's office. She had been sobbing at her desk while Miranda was consoling her at the side. "Willow, are you okay?" asked Caspian. She turned to the side in an attempt to hide her crying face from him. "Why are you here?" He then shifted to the side as well to face her. "I'm here to check on you. I don't even know if Kate is my mother anymore. Honey, why would she be so cruel? She has never cared about me ever since I was a child. I've never felt any warmth from her growing up. It's almost as if I was adopted." "Why do you think you're adopted?" asked Caspian. "My mom has only used me as a tool for my entire life. She never even considered my feelings back when she tried to force me to marry Nicholas. Throughout my childhood, she only cared about her own well-being and enjoyment. She has never cared about me at all. I think that she would have wanted me gone long ago if not for my dad and grandpa looking after me." Willow became more and more agitated as she talked about Kate's attitude and how she had treated her back then. Caspian realized that Willow may be onto something. Kate bore no similarities with Willow, both in terms of appearance and nature. Most of all, no mother would ever treat their own child with nothing but hate and contempt. "I can help you if you want to clear your doubts about your relationship with Mrs. Stewart." He had already made up his mind to interrogate Kate. "Can you really do that?" asked Willow. "Don't forget that I'm a general officer. Finding out about your lineage is just a simple matter." "Thanks, Caspian. I finally realized just how vile of a woman my mother really is. I don't want anything to do with the Stewarts anymore, except for my dad." He brought over a piece of tissue and wiped her tears. "Don't worry, Willow. I'll protect you and make sure nobody gets to bully you anymore." Willow replied, "I want some time for myself. You should go ahead." "Of course." Caspian nodded his head and left the office. He was just about to leave to teach Kate a lesson as well. Kate left Southlake Corporation offices and was about to drive back to Stewart residence. She was still furious that she was slapped twice by Caspian in public. She had already begun to plot her revenge against Caspian. Suddenly, an SUV stopped in front of her car. Kate was startled by the SUV suddenly appearing before her and couldn't react in time to reach her brakes. She pressed down on the brakes to slow down the impact and managed to bump into the SUV without causing too much damage. She was still angry over what had happened and was tipped over the boiling point after being blocked on the road. She even got into a car accident. "Hey, are you blind or something?" Two men soon came out from the SUV. "Please come with us." They then immediately grabbed Kate and dragged her into the SUV. "Who are you? What do you want?" The terrified Kate tried to struggle and break free from their hold. But she soon noticed that both men were armed with their pistols hanging by their waist. She immediately quieted down, trying not to cause any trouble. Kate could only obediently follow her captors into their car. Meanwhile, Sylvia and Macy were watching the scene unfold from afar. They then got into their car and followed after the SUV as it drove off. Kate had frozen up from fear, as one of the men had his pistols aimed at her head. She tried to beg for mercy. "It's my fault. I won't make a deal out of the crash and just go on my way. Please, let me go." No one in the car would bother to give her a reply. "Who are you people? Why do you want to capture me? Is this a kidnapping?" She continued to ask questions as she had no idea why she was being targeted. She realized that she was probably being kidnapped for ransom, and not for her body considering her age. One of the men got fed up with her questions and shouted, "Shut your mouth. You'll know once we arrive at South Lake Cemetery." The cemetery. Why there of all places? She took a look at the men and began to tremble, as she thought about the possibilities for why she was being brought to a cemetery. "What do you want? Let me go. I'm warning you. You better let me go right now. My son-in-law is in the special forces in the military. He even knows General Anderson." Kate mentioned Caspian in an attempt to resolve the emergency. The men simply laughed at her in their minds. They felt bad for Kate for not knowing that it was Caspian himself who ordered her to be captured. Meanwhile, Caspian had just walked out of South Lake Corporation when Sylvia called his phone. "Caspian, we've caught our target. We're on our way to South Lake Cemetery right now," reported Sylvia. "Very well." Caspian hung up and immediately headed to South Lake Cemetery. Chapter 206, You Can't Kill Me. The Special Forces members soon drove into South Lake Cemetery and brought Kate toward Lilith's tombstone. Kate was horrified when she realized who the tombstone belonged to. "Why did you bring me here? Who are you people?" She still had no idea what her kidnappers wanted from her. One of the men answered, "Just shut your mouth and wait." She started recalling the night she had kicked Lilith out of the house as she stared at the tombstone. Her guilty conscience rendered her unable to look straight at the tombstone. Soon after, Sylvia and Macy also arrived at the cemetery. Kate smiled as she recognized one of the women coming out of the car. She ran out of the car and shouted, "Save me, Sylvia. They're kidnapping me." Sylvia was at a loss for words as she couldn't possibly rescue someone she was tasked to capture. Kate ran up to Sylvia and said, "Sylvia, don't you recognize me? I'm Willow's mother. And I'm also Caspian's mother-in-law. Save me, please." Sylvia coldly replied, "Please calm down. They won't hurt you. Just sit tight and be patient." Suddenly, a Ferrari entered the cemetery's compounds as well. Kate took a closer look and realized that it belonged to Caspian. She seemingly became hopeful again as she realized that Caspian had arrived. Caspian parked the car by the side and slowly got out of his car. Kate rushed toward him while shouting, "Save me, Caspian. They're kidnapping me." She had already forgotten about being slapped by Caspian just moments prior. She had to beg him for help now, so that she could escape back to safety. "They're just following my orders," answered Caspian. "What? Why, Caspian? Why would you do this?" asked the horrified Kate. "I have questions that only you can answer. Tell me, why did you hit Willow? Why do you treat her so badly? Is she really your own daughter?" Kate panicked for a moment but quickly composed herself. "What are you talking about? Of course, Willow's my own daughter." Caspian, however, had already noticed a hint of hesitation and panic in her eyes. He was certain that Kate wasn't telling the truth. "So why do you treat her so badly? You're already cruel enough to not help her when she needs it. Why go so far as to even humiliate her in public?" asked Caspian. He couldn't believe that a mother would only see her own children as mere tools. "What are you talking about? I'm just teaching her a lesson. I had to re-educate her for trying to break ties with the family just because she's now successful and can fend for herself. She's ungrateful," explained Kate. Caspian was furious. "I already know what you've been hiding from me. My mom wouldn't have died if you never kicked her out of the house that night." Kate began to panic. "How did you know?" She had never told anyone else about it other than Willow. She assumed that Willow must have betrayed her and told Caspian about it. "I went through the security footage in the house and saw everything for myself," answered Caspian. Kate immediately turned pale with fear. She had never even thought of the possibility that there would be security cameras in the house. "Why did you bring me here? What do you want? Do you want ransom money? I can ask the stewards for money if you want. Just let me go." She was terrified by Caspian's vengeful gaze and was worried that he might hurt her again. "I don't need your money. I'm only here for revenge." Caspian reached out to Sylvia's hand and grabbed her pistol. Sylvia was startled, as she wondered if he was actually going to kill his mother-in-law. Kate lost her strength and crumbled onto the ground as she fearfully watched Caspian point the handgun at her. "You're crazy, Caspian. You'll go to prison for murdering people. Don't you know that? You should be in prison, if you ask me. I never expected you to belittle and insult my mother the entire time she was living in the house with you. I only wanted her to enjoy her retirement. I'll have to kill you to avenge her." Kate trembled with fear when she realized that he was being serious. She had always assumed he was a good-for-nothing. But now, he was seemingly standing up for himself. "You can't do this, Caspian. We're family. Willow has already announced that she has severed all ties with the Stewarts. I'm no longer your son-in-law. You brought this onto yourself." His own words only stirred up his anger further as he aimed his gun at Kate. Kate finally lost her marbles and knelt down in front of him to beg for mercy. "Please, don't kill me, Caspian. Please, just let me go." Even she could feel the killing intent emanating from Caspian. She had never expected that kicking Lilith out of the house would eventually end up like this. Both Sylvia and Macy also began to panic, as they wondered if they should try to stop Caspian. Kate continued to beg for her life. "It's not like I actually caused Lilith's death or anything. She was too righteous for her own good and went out to fight the hooligans on her own. What did that have to do with me? Besides, Lilith managed to save that young girl's life with her own. That's a morally acceptable exchange, don't you think? A senior managed to exchange her life for Al youngsters. Lilith was even praised for her bravery. Think about it this way. She wouldn't have gotten such an honor if I hadn't kicked her out of the house that night." Caspian reprimanded her. "None of that would have happened if you didn't kick my mom out of the house. My mom was a righteous person because she was raised right. Not like you, who only cares to manipulate and use everyone around you for your own benefit." He realized that the vile woman kneeling before him was beyond saving, as she tried to shift the blame even at gunpoint. Kate still hoped that she could convince him to spare her. "You can't kill me, Caspian. Aren't you worried that Willow might divorce you for this? You're not worthy of mentioning her name anymore. Do you really think she cares whether you're still alive or dead?" Caspian aimed his handgun once more. He had long lost interest in questioning her. A gunshot echoed through Southlake Cemetery. Chapter 207, True Identity. Everyone present was caught off guard by Caspian suddenly opening fire. Kate had also fallen onto the ground following the gunshot. To everyone's surprise, Kate was unharmed. Caspian had shot the ground instead of killing her. Kate had fainted on the ground and took a minute to regain her consciousness. Caspian felt much better after watching her faint on the ground, and thinking that she had died. He coldly asked, "Tell me, why do you treat Willow so badly?" Kate was still trembling with fear as she woke up in a confused state. She had only managed to confirm that she was still alive when Caspian shouted at her. She felt that she had come back to life after dying once. Kate took a long time before coming back to her senses. "Willow isn't actually my own daughter." She finally spilled the truth out of fear. She was afraid that Caspian might kill her for real. Caspian was surprised that his intuition about Willow and Kate not being biologically related was correct. "Was Willow adopted?" asked Caspian. "I'm her stepmother. Her real biological mother is a woman called Irene Olsen. She left the Stewarts after she gave birth to Willow," answered Kate. "Why did she leave the family for no reason? She was actually kicked out of the house by Carl's grandmother, who's also Willow's great-grandmother. She was the matriarch of the family at the time." Caspian was utterly confused. Why did Willow's great-grandmother do that? He still needed more information from Kate. She felt that Irene was not a great match for her grandson, and thus kicked her out of the house. Irene was just a normal girl from a normal family. Nothing she could do would ever elevate her standing to match the Stewarts. Willow's great-grandmother felt that bringing Irene into the family was a disgraceful act. Caspian was enraged by the revelation. "This is ridiculous. Who do the Stewarts think they are? They're just a bunch of scums that take advantage of everyone they can lay their hands on for their own benefit. Every single one of the Stewarts is unsalvageable trash." He didn't expect that Willow had such a twisted backstory. He composed himself and asked, "So, where's Willow's biological mother now?" Kate explained, "I don't know. She used to live in Easton. Carl had tried to look for her multiple times since she left the family. I've even gotten into an argument with Carl for this matter, calling him unfaithful for still trying to contact his former wife. She was truly spilling her guts out without holding on to any more secrets. She was hoping for a chance to be freed. I've told you everything I know. Please, let me go. She didn't want to die just yet. Sure. Consider this as thanks for raising Willow throughout her life. He understood that killing Kate wouldn't change history, and wouldn't bring Lilith back from the dead. He decided to spare Kate's life, as she had also never expected Lilith to be met with an early grave after kicking her out of the house that night. "Can I go now?" asked Kate. She didn't dare to move without Caspian's permission. Caspian coldly explained, "You may go after you've apologized to my mother." Kate immediately crawled toward Lilith's tombstone and began to grovel desperately. "I'm sorry, Lilith. It's my fault for kicking you out of the house that night. Maybe you wouldn't have died otherwise. I only hope that you'll forgive me and move on." Caspian felt relieved as he watched Kate grovel for mercy in front of Lilith's tombstone. "That's enough. Get lost already. I don't want anyone to hear about what happened here today." Kate nodded and scrambled to escape from the cemetery. Both Sylvia and Macy let out a sigh of relief as they watched Caspian spare Kate's life. "Caspian, what are your orders?" asked Sylvia. "I need you to restore Ms. Wildman's job as a teacher. Kindly ask the Education Ministry officials why they decided to fire such an excellent teacher like Ms. Wildman." Sylvia nodded her head. "Yes, sir." Caspian moved on to his next task, which was to deal with Belvin and Jeremy. Meanwhile, Avon had arrived at Stephanie's home to check up on her parents. Now that Stephanie's problems were resolved, Veronica had fully recovered from her momentary insanity due to stress. Both Lana and Elias had also made a full recovery. Everyone involved had resumed their normal lives. Stephanie had invited Avon to her house to show gratitude. Avon accepted the invitation as he felt bad for declining such an enthusiastic invitation from Stephanie. He joined the Wildmans for a meal at the dining table, and they began to chatter. "Dr. Long, how old are you? Do you have a partner?" asked Veronica. "I'm 28 years old, and I don't have a partner," answered Avon. He was taken aback by the sudden questioning. "That's perfect. What do you think of our daughter? You're around the same age. Why don't the two of you get together? You'll be a good match." Avon awkwardly answered, Well, Ms. Wildman is very pretty and has a nice personality. I'm sure she's famous with her peers." Stephanie patted Veronica on the back to try and stop her from causing trouble for Avon. Avon and Stephanie met each other's gaze and felt a tinge of electrocution run through their hearts. He had quite a good impression of Stephanie, as he had never managed to meet a gentlewoman like her in the military. The only problem was that he didn't dare try to make any advances on Caspian's teacher. Elias tried to steer the conversation away. "That's enough. Please, eat up." Everyone continued to enjoy the meal. Avon couldn't help but wonder what would happen if Caspian found out that he was trying to court his teacher. He retracted his thought as the possibility was too horrifying to think of. Meanwhile, Caspian had returned to Southlake Corporation's office building. He was looking for Willow and wanted to tell her everything he had just uncovered. Chapter 208, Back to School. Willow had already regained her composure and was working with Miranda on their contracts with the various companies. Although the masses were unimpressed with the contracts, many still signed them. A good portion of companies had also refused to sign the contracts. They would rather lose all their investments than work with Southlake City for free. The situation was still within Willow's expectations. She wasn't afraid of a lack of business as she was the biggest corporation in Southlake City. Miranda noticed Caspian's arrival and quickly summarized her report before leaving the office. "Willow, I found out that Kate is merely your stepmother," said Caspian. Willow was surprised. "What did you say?" "She's actually just my stepmother." She'd only made the assumption given Kate's attitude and didn't expect it to turn out to be the truth. "How did you find out about this? Is it really the truth?" asked Willow. "Kate said it herself." Willow began to panic. What did you do to her? You didn't actually kill her, did you?" She realized that she wasn't there to stop Caspian from enacting his revenge this time around. She assumed that he must have been triggered by what happened in the office earlier and tried to take matters into his own hands. Willow felt that Caspian would have been cruel if he really killed Kate, even though she hated her just as much. Caspian explained, "Relax. I didn't kill her. Anyway, your biological mother is a woman named Irene Olsen from Easton. The bad news is that she has already been missing for years. Why didn't she try to look for me? Willow was still upset and confused about being abandoned. It's not her fault. Your great-grandmother kicked her out of the family as she deemed your mother unworthy. I need to find her. Can you help me, Caspian? Asked Willow. She really wanted to find out if her biological mother was doing fine. Caspian gently caressed her cheeks and reassured, Of course, I will. I'll have my men try to look for her. Finding a missing person wasn't that much of a hassle for the Diaturanian god of war. Willow blushed and replied, Thank you, Caspian. I love you. If we can actually find my mother again, I'll bear as many children as you want. Caspian smiled. You said it. The relationship of the couple had gotten more intimate after all that had happened. Sylvia made a phone call to the education ministry after receiving Caspian's orders. She greeted the man and introduced herself. Hello, I'm a general of the investigative team, Sylvia Frost. Calling herself a general of the investigative team was more efficient in displaying her authority in South Lake City, rather than calling herself a general officer. Trevor Winston, the director of the education ministry, was startled as he listened to Sylvia state her credentials. He wondered if she was trying to look for trouble, given the unstable situation within South Lake City. He wanted to confirm who he was dealing with. Who knows if you're the real deal or not? Can you prove your identity? You may ask the first in command of South Lake City to confirm my identity, answered Sylvia. Trevor began to panic as he listened to Sylvia fending off his question with ease and confidence. He realized that he would have to be polite regardless if Sylvia was a genuine officer or not. Anything I can help with, General Frost. Do you know of a woman named Stephanie Wildman? Of course, I do. She was a teacher at South Lake City High School. However, her teachings corrupted the morals of the students there and even caused a young girl to attempt suicide. She's been fired since the incident. What about her? Asked Trevor. Sylvia shouted, Nonsense. Ms. Wildman's students include a man who has gone on to become the Diaturanian god of war. Do you think this would have been possible if she's truly a corrupt teacher as you claim? You fired such an outstanding teacher without properly investigating what happened. Are you trying to lose your job, I wonder? Trevor sheepishly answered, Of course not. I'll launch an investigation right away and find out the truth. He had helped cover up the incident and branded Stephanie as the villain, as he was afraid of Belvin. Now that he realized his option was to stand with either the Lincolns or the Diaturanian god of war himself, he would immediately shift his allegiance. You're just wasting everyone's time. Just reinstate Stephanie back to her position as a teacher. That's all you have to do, said Sylvia. Of course. I'll get on it right away. Sylvia then immediately hung up. Trevor patted himself on the chest and let out a sigh of relief. He remained suspicious of Sylvia's credentials and wanted to make sure that she was the real deal. He then phoned the first in command of South Lake City. Hey buddy, do you know of anyone named Sylvia Frost? She said that she's a general for the investigative team. Is that for real? What did you do? Sylvia is one of their generals. Yes, it's recent news for me as well. I don't think it's a position that anyone would dare to impersonate. She called me to talk about Stephanie Wildman, the teacher I fired over the incident at South Lake City High School. The general wants me to reinstate Stephanie as a teacher again, explained Trevor. Why would a general of the investigative team look out for some random teacher? Trevor replied, That's because Stephanie was the teacher of the Diaturanian god of war himself. I fired her back then because Belvin ordered me to, but now, I don't know what I should do. You're absolutely done for. You've offended the fucking Diaturanian god of war. I want nothing to do with this. The man over the phone didn't want to risk losing his power and authority within South Lake City by offending the Diaturanian god of war. Buddy, you gotta help me out here. This is all Belvin's fault, begged Trevor. Trevor began to regret ever helping Belvin with covering up for Jeremy. But he realized he wouldn't have been able to afford to offend Belvin either. Just do as she said, then. Reinstate Stephanie back to her job as a teacher. I've always known that Belvin was up to no good, but I didn't have the time to investigate him further. It's better to be on the Diaturanian god of war side instead of Belvin's. Offending the former would be game over for both South Lake City and the Two Lakes region. I understand. I'm sure there's more to this matter. Belvin must have deliberately kept me in the dark. Should I tell him that the investigative team came looking for us? Asked Trevor. Are you stupid? Why would you let him know about it? Just let Ms. Wildman back into the school as a teacher. Belvin isn't worth our attention any longer. And remember to call me on the day she goes back to school as a teacher. I need to be there to greet her. Chapter 209, Arrogant Brat. Not even the first in command of South Lake City would dare to offend the Diateranian god of war's teacher. Although he didn't know who the god of war was, he instinctively realized that such a man wasn't someone he could offend. He decided to greet Stephanie by the door on the day she returned to work. I understand. I'll give you a call when the day comes, answered Trevor. Trevor had also decided to pay Stephanie a warm welcome once she returned. He might not be able to keep his job for long otherwise. Meanwhile, Avon was about to leave after finishing a meal with the Wildmans. Stephanie was accompanying him on the way down. Suddenly, her phone started ringing. Hello? Who's this? Asked Stephanie. Trevor greeted her and explained, Hello, Ms. Wildman. I'm Trevor Winston, the General of the Education Ministry. I'm calling to inform you that you may resume your job as a teacher 2 days from today. He wouldn't delay the Diateranian god of war's teacher any longer. Stephanie was shocked. Really? You're not making this up, are you? Of course not, Ms. Wildman. We relaunched an investigation into the incident and found that the student who attempted suicide had nothing to do with you. You'll soon receive a notification of your reinstatement as a teacher. She was elated to receive the great news. That's great. Thank you, Director Trevor. She had already forfeited all hope of ever returning to her career as a teacher. You're welcome, Ms. Wildman. It was an error on our part to fire an excellent teacher like you. I hope you accept my sincerest apologies for the misunderstanding. She was taken aback by the fact that the director himself was apologizing to her. Thank you, really. I'm really happy that I can go back to teaching. I'm truly sorry about that. We'll be hosting a welcoming party for you when you return to work 2 days later, said Trevor. Okay. Thank you, Director. That's all for now, then. Stephanie thanked Trevor for the great news and hung up. Avon had been listening in on the conversation at the side. He wasn't surprised at all by the fact that she was able to get her job back. Stephanie happily exclaimed, Dr. Long, I'm going back to my job as a teacher. Let's get Caspian to join us for dinner tonight to celebrate. It's my treat. Sure. Avon nodded his head and then left in his car. Stephanie then made a call to Caspian and invited him to have dinner together. Caspian didn't accept her invitation directly, as he was busy investigating Willow's biological mother. Later on at 7 in the evening, Elias had reserved a table at a hotel, as he wanted to thank Caspian in person. He wouldn't have made it out of the bed and onto a full recovery if not for Caspian's help. Avon arrived at the hotel with the Wildman's invitation, as they also wanted to thank him for his help. While they were waiting for Caspian to arrive, Stephanie saw that Jeremy had walked into the hotel with his underlings following behind him. She became furious as she didn't expect to run into him while they were having dinner. Avon quickly noticed her sour mood and asked, What's wrong, Ms. Wildman? Stephanie tried to play it cool. Oh, it's nothing. Meanwhile, Jeremy had also spotted Stephanie and walked toward their table with a sly grin. Hello, Ms. Wildman. What a coincidence. Both Elias and Veronica's expressions sank the moment they saw the scumbag. Stephanie angrily replied, What do you want, Jeremy? Please stay away from us. Although Avon had never met Jeremy, he had already heard plenty about him when he was briefed about Lana. With a smile, Jeremy walked up to their table. Why so angry, Ms. Wildman? I want to talk to you about lots of stuff. I don't want to talk to you. Are you still worried about having lost your job as a teacher? Well, my offer still stands, you know. So long as you agree to be my woman, I can always reinstate you back to your job. He had long been coveting Stephanie's beautiful face and figure. Elias was furious. Fuck off. She's your teacher. For fuck's sake. Did your parents never teach you any manners? Are you insulting my parents? Don't you know who they are? Asked Jeremy. Who the fuck cares? I've been wanting to teach punks like you a lesson. Elias readied his fists, about to beat up Jeremy. He didn't know who Jeremy's father was, nor did he care. All he knew was that his daughter was being disrespected. Stephanie immediately stood up to resolve the situation. Calm down, Dad. She didn't want to directly injure Jeremy and offend his parents. Jeremy, however, tried to incite the fight further. Why don't you hit me, old fart? I'll be the judge to see if you can still hurt me with your old bones. You brat, I'll fucking kill you. Haha. I never knew there were people in South Lake City who dare to hurt me, boasted Jeremy. Jeremy then smiled at Stephanie and said, Ms. Wildman, you can have anything you want if you become my woman, you know. Shut your mouth. I don't need anything from you. Director Trevor of the Education Ministry has already reinstated me as a teacher. Sure, I believe you. As if Trevor would dare to do so without my dad's approval. Veronica finally spoke up. That's your own problem. My daughter will be going back to school as a teacher in 2 days. Stop bothering me, Jeremy. I already have a partner, explained Stephanie as she leaned closer to Avon. Avon quickly understood her words and stood up. He then exclaimed, That's right, I'm Stephanie's boyfriend. Avon's cooperation also took Stephanie by surprise. But it was a much-needed help to drive Jeremy away. Jeremy angrily explained, You'd be wise to break up with him right now, Stephanie. Or he might not live to see another day. I've seen my fair share of arrogant brats. But I'd say you're the most unlucky one, said Avon. He could never get used to handling these arrogant and entitled young men. Jeremy shouted, It would seem that you're even more arrogant than me. Don't you know that the entire South Lake City is my playground? Try me, and you'll be crawling out of the city since your legs will be broken. Avon lifted his hand and slapped Jeremy square in the face. He wasn't afraid of anything with Caspian at his back. Chapter 210 Calling for Help. A clear slap echoed through the room. Jeremy felt a sharp pain on his cheek before his entire body swirled through the air and fell flat on the floor. Avon's slap had even knocked out a few of his teeth. Everyone present was flabbergasted. They couldn't believe that Avon could deal so much damage with just a single slap. The Wildmans were frozen in place as they never expected a doctor to have such might. Avon already had his strength and fighting abilities by default, as he was originally a soldier, before he went on to become a doctor. Jeremy screamed out in pain as he fell onto the floor. His underlings were too stunned to act and simply stood around. They soon snapped back to their senses and ran to pick Jeremy off the ground. Stop. Don't touch me. It hurts. I think my bones are broken. Jeremy waved his hand, motioning for them to stop moving him around. He was bleeding from his mouth. They then obediently stopped trying to lift him off the ground. Jeremy shouted, What are you guys standing around for? Kill him. He never expected Stephanie's new boyfriend to actually hit him when he just wanted to take advantage of her body. Stephanie and her parents were startled as the underlings rushed toward them following Jeremy's orders. Avon stepped up to stop the hooligans from endangering the Wildmans. He began to slap each and every one of the underlings. Dozens of loud slaps echoed throughout the hotel, rendering all the men paralyzed on the floor. Avon had completely annihilated Jeremy's men in a matter of seconds. They were simple hooligans from the streets who wouldn't have possibly stood up to a battle-hardened veteran like Avon in the first place. The Wildmans were even more surprised by the fact that Avon was so powerful. They were already impressed by Caspian's strength, and they never expected a doctor like Avon to be similarly powerful. Elias couldn't help but hope that he could have Avon as his son-in-law as he watched the scene unfold before him. Jeremy realized he was out of luck, as he had run into a similarly powerful man like Caspian. The hotel employees were too scared to attempt to close in to help out with the fight. They just stood and watched from a distance. Veronica then exclaimed, Dr. Long, we should get out of here. She had only assumed that Avon stood up to attempt to get Jeremy to leave. Avon calmly explained, Relax, Mrs. Wildman. We don't have to be afraid of them with Caspian at our back. Jeremy began to panic as he realized that Avon somehow still remained calm. Who are you? Wait here. I'll go and get my dad to finish you. Sure, I'll slap your father as well once he's here, answered Avon. Jeremy pulled out his phone and called Belvin for help. Stephanie began to panic. We should leave now. He's calling for help. Don't worry, I'll ask for help as well. Avon walked aside, pulled out his phone, and called Caspian for help. Stephanie wondered if Caspian would be of help in this situation. She wondered what a soldier could possibly do against the fourth in command of South Lake City. Hello, Avon. What's up? Caspian was nearby Easton, as he was investigating Willow's biological mother. Caspian, I was having dinner with the Wildmans at a hotel when we suddenly ran into Jeremy. He insulted Ms. Wildman, and I hit him. He seems to be calling for help right now. What should I do? Asked Avon. Avon didn't want to cause too much of a ruckus in South Lake City, without permission from Caspian. Very well. I've already sent Sylvia to deal with the Lincolns. If Jeremy tries anything funny, makes an appearance, you have permission to deal with him as well. Caspian already had the Lincolns in his sight. He just didn't have the time to deal with them himself. He had long wanted to eradicate the threat to society known as Jeremy. His father showing up would simply be a matter of killing two birds with one stone. Belvin had misused his power and authority to bend the laws to his benefit. He had caused harm to the citizens of South Lake City and was deserving of death. Of course, Caspian, answered Avon. Actually, never mind. I'll have Macy come to deal with Jeremy. You shouldn't dirty your hands as a doctor. Just make sure that the Wildmans are safe. And one more thing, tell them I'm sorry that I can't be there for dinner. Yes, sir, answered Avon. Meanwhile, Jeremy was calling Belvin for help. Dad, somebody just hit me. He even knocked my teeth out, and my entire body hurts. You gotta show them who's boss, Dad. Belvin was furious upon receiving the news. Who dares? The guy claims to be Stephanie's boyfriend. I don't know what the hell his name is, but he didn't stop after hitting me. He even insulted you as well. He said that the fourth in command of South Lake City is nothing before him. He also said that he'll hit you if you dare to show yourself, explained Jeremy. Belvin angrily declared, arrogant bastard. I'll bring some men over to teach him a lesson. He had long gotten used to terrorizing South Lake City and had protected his own son from all sorts of misdeeds. He couldn't sit idly by as his authority in the city was being insulted and challenged. Caspian soon called Macy and assigned her to help Avon resolve the situation. He had been busy investigating Irene personally, as he wanted to bring the news to Willow as a surprise. Caspian, what are your orders? Asked Macy. Bring some men to arrest Jeremy and Belvin Lincoln. Go and ask Avon for their location, ordered Caspian. Yes, sir. Should we lock them up after we capture them? Belvin Lincoln abuses his power and authority in South Lake City to bend the laws for his own benefit and causes trouble for the citizens. He often shields his son, Jeremy, from any repercussions as he rampantly causes trouble around the city. The two of them are unsalvageable human trash, explained Caspian. How shall we deal with the two of them, Lord Caspian? Caspian coldly ordered, bring them away from the public eye and execute them. Yes, sir, answered Macy. He would not spare any mercy for people like Jeremy and Belvin, especially for a man like Belvin who should never have been a high-ranking official in South Lake City.